Moneybox has reported before on the problems faced by up to 100,000 people who bought new leasehold flats or houses with a ground rent that could double every 10 years. Now a legal firm is sending out hundreds of letters to the firms who did their conveyancing, demanding compensation. The claim is that once the ground rent exceeds a certain amount, the leaseholder loses important rights and may find their home is hard to sell or remortgage. Any solicitor who failed to warn a buyer of these problems can be held liable for any loss. Live now to talk to Gareth Fatchett, partner with FS Legal in Birmingham. That's the firm taking the case. Gareth Fatchett, when you buy leasehold, you are told about these extra costs. What did the conveyancers really fail to do?
Well, in nearly all cases, you'll be told that the ground rent does accelerate and it increases, but the bit that's missing is the implication of when that happens. What does that actually mean?
And what does it mean?
Well, for most people, it means that they lose important rights to do with how they could acquire the freehold interest. It increases the risk of forfeiture, and more importantly, it creates some very technical problems around creating assured short-hold tenancies when the ground rent gets above a certain amount. So it makes a bit of a mess. And mortgage lenders, who are the key funders of these purchases, have all become very frightened by them. And if you look at the Council of Mortgage Lender Guidance, nearly every lender has put conditions or simply refuses to touch certain of these clauses.
So it could be that if you come to resell, or indeed even remortgage, then you'd find it difficult, if not impossible, to do.
Yes, because if you're a purchaser and you're being advised, because all the advice now is tightened up. So if you go and buy one of these things now, or look to buy one, you get a really big red flashing light bulb saying, be careful.
Yes.
Puts you straight off.
You mentioned forfeiture. That, as I understand it, it's when you don't pay the ground rent.
That's
and
correct,
you can be thrown out. So how much might this extra cost, or if you like, the loss, amount to?
Well, it will vary between different types of buildings. Obviously, flats will have a different approach to houses, but the impairment, we've spoken to chartered surveyors, and they say it can be up to 30% of value, which is on some properties it's a significant amount.
Well, yes. So if you spent £200,000, that's 60,000 quid, isn't it? So that's a lot of money, and that is what you're asking these conveyancers for.
Well, the conveyancers owe a duty of care to their clients. They acted for the clients. So yes, we would say to them, if you miss these points, would the client have proceeded if they'd have known? And I think the answer will more often than not be no, we wouldn't. That's the difference. It's that loss. So
why didn't they warn their clients? I mean, is it because solicitors are sometimes recommended by the developers? Yeah.
In many, many cases, developers run panels for their purchasers. And although you can't say that they're steering the advice is very streamlined. It concerns us that the job isn't being done to its fullest extent.
Now, these leases have been sold for a number of years, haven't they? Aren't there time limits to take action like this?
Yes, the primary time limit is 6 years from the date of the advice. So, for a lot of people, they're either right on that or in some cases beyond it. There is a second concept, which is to do with date of knowledge. But the problem we have with a lot of these matters is that the noise about this started in mid-2016. So if you add 3 years to that, that's mid-next year, which is not much time, really.
So you've got 3 years after you might reasonably first have heard of it. So
you can't stick your head in the sand.
That's the sort of later deadline. So people have got to take some action now. Now, you've sent out 500 letters. I don't imagine that you could send out 100,000 if everybody got in touch with you. What's going to happen in this case?
I think it will develop, and I think obviously there are more solicitors firms that are interested in this particular issue. But I think the primary problem will come with, there's a lot of discussion around reforming leases, which is a much wider topic, and that's seemingly distracting people into kind of sitting doing nothing, and that's the key danger, we think.
Yes, and let me ask you about one other danger I'm sure everyone is thinking of now if they're in this position. What's it going to cost me? Can you say it will cost the client nothing under any circumstances?
Yeah, we've put together a scheme. So we bring the claim letter, we draft it, we ask the solicitor and their insurers to formally explain, and that is without any cost. The only time you'd run into a cost is, say, for example, if you were asked to value your loss, but more often than not, that's recoverable as well. So that's the only real time I can think there could be that kind of thing. But if you were about to win your money back, well, I suspect that would be something you'd be prepared to live with.
Gareth Fatchett of FS Legal, thanks very much.